All right, everybody, we're going to talk about the discriminant of a quadratic equation today. Discriminant is the key word for today. And we find it with a formula. And before I start, this is not us solving the equation. This is us just finding something, finding a component of it. So we use a formula that will kind of look familiar. B squared minus 4ac. There is no square root symbol. It's just b squared minus 4ac. And you'll be finding the discriminant using this formula. And then there'll be three different cases. Either the discriminant is positive. That's case one. Let me give you an example. We'll start with an equation like 24x squared plus 8x minus 9 equals 0. Previously, we'd go all the way through the quadratic formula and plug in A, B, and C and stuff. Now we just have a little bit simpler job. That's A, that's B, that's C. And all I need to be concerned with is what is B squared minus 4AC? That's all I want us to do right now. Okay, for us, B squared would have to be 8 squared, so that's 64. This will always be a positive number, remember, because I squared it. Then a minus sign, then a 4. Then my A value is 24. My C value is negative 9. This will be calculator work. Remember, I'm not hitting the square root key. I'm just going straight up. 64 minus 4 times 24 times negative 9. You can type it in exactly like you see it, and you get 928. 928 is the discriminant. Doesn't mean it solves the equation or anything. I didn't do that, but I had to find one little piece called the discriminant. It's 928. The last thing I'll write down for this, if the discriminant is positive, there are two solutions to the equation. I'll explain the why behind this at the end, but for now, just be aware that if I get a positive number here, that means that there are two answers to the equation. Case 2. Sometimes the discriminant will end up being negative. For this, let's take a look at a new equation. X squared plus 6x plus 14 equals 0. When you start these problems, remember, if it asks for the discriminant, I just have to be concerned with b squared minus 4ac. That's all I'm worried about. So for me, what is b squared? That's 6 squared, that's 36. Minus 4, my a value this time is 1, and my c value is 14. It's a calculator problem. 36. Type it in just like you see it. See if you get the same thing I do. Negative 20. The discriminant is negative 20. The other piece of information you have to know with this is if the discriminant is negative, there are no solutions or zero solutions. I'll tell you why in just a second. But for now, remember, if I get a negative discriminant, it's okay to put negative 20 as your answer, but there actually are no solutions if you try to solve the equation. There's no use in even trying to solve that. There are no real solutions there. There's one more case. What if the discriminant is exactly 0? Let's put 0. We talked about if it's positive. We talked about if it's negative. What about if the discriminant is 0? Here's a case where that happens. X squared minus 6x equals, let's go negative 9. Keep in mind you'll need to make these equations equal to 0 before you start. So if that's the case, I got to add 9 to both sides and get x squared minus 6x plus 9 equals 0. Now I can go ahead and go to work with the discriminant. Discriminant just means b squared minus 4ac. That's all I'm worried about. I'm not actually even solving the equation. I'm not finding out what the mystery number is. I'm answering a different question about the equation. What's the discriminant? Okay, so for me, looks like b squared is going to be, careful here, this is positive 36. Kind of like when you did the quadratic formula, b squared is always a positive value. Minus 4, a value 1, c value positive 9. 36 minus 4 times 1 times 9. The discriminant is 0. So sometimes when you're finding out what the discriminant is, just be 0. And if the discriminant is 0, there is one solution to the equation. Let me explain why real quick. You remember the quadratic formula. And you remember what went under that square root symbol. It was the b squared minus 4ac. Okay, so think about that. If, like, the discriminant is right there. If this thing ended up being positive, if this ended up being some positive number, then it would be like any other quadratic formula problem that I've done so far. I'd have to do it the plus way and the minus way, and I'd get 2 answers. That's what you're used to. Positive discriminant means there's going to be 2 answers like normal. But if you would get a negative discriminant, that would mean as you tried to solve it, you'd get a negative number under a square root. In your calculator real quick, type in negative 30 as a square root. It's going to give you an error. We don't take square roots of negative numbers in Algebra 1. So that's why it's giving you a no solutions. If the discriminant is negative, there are no solutions. So negative, no. And lastly, if the discriminant is exactly 0, whoops, oh boy. Well, I'll explain over here. You got your field of notes in front of you. What is going on? No explain everything jokes. If your discriminant is actually 0, what's the square root of 0? 0. And then at that point, it doesn't matter whether you add or subtract. If you add or subtract 0, you're going to get the same thing. So you can go ahead and do it twice, but you're going to get the same answer. if you'd solve the equation. That is a preview on discriminant. I'll get you going on the worksheet.